and I don't actually get to the cause of the increased fiber tension, it's just going to come back. Same thing if I'm implementing Graston technique. If I'm going to change that movement system, I need to have some exercise as an adjunct to get them out of that cycle. So hopefully you see, even with the very first model of why we dry needle or why a trigger point develops and why we may needle that trigger point, it's the same thing for Graston technique. So things that we can apply to both. That's why really combining them together is really effective for your care. So just I want to give you a look at kind of what dry needling is, because some of you may, again, not have seen it in practice. So I just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to do that. So here is just palpation of a trigger point. So my thumb, you see, is kind of going over a band on the vastus lateralis. You see the little hair dance there. And you see kind of the twitch response that's there. So even that is treatment. And this is an ultrasound pic of that same spot. So a little black bulb that's kind of in the middle of the screen. That is the trigger point. That's the same person. I'm kind of just flicking over that trigger point, and he feels it. And obviously you're going to feel it as a clinician. And then for treatment-wise, just so you get an idea of what that looks like. So this is obviously not the same person, but you can kind of palpate that same area in that trigger point. And you're going to kind of place that needle into that spot, go down to the depth of that tissue. So in this instance, 20 millimeters down, could be further, could be less. And then go ahead and treat that area till you get some twitch responses and a response from that patient. And then as you can see that, as we treat somebody with dry needling, it's very much an internal treatment, right? So if we're doing the techniques of trigger point
to the medial malleolus in the ankle, and it's going to pass through that tunnel with our tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, and flexor hallucis longus. That tibial nerve will pass through that tunnel with those three tendons. And then as it exits that tunnel, it's going to split into the medial and plantar nerves. And something we want to pay specific attention to, the first branch of that lateral plantar nerve is referred to as Baxter's nerve. It's going to sit, approximately a centimeter, maybe not quite that far, just distal to that medial calcaneal tubercle. And oftentimes, a neuritis, a neuropathy of that nerve is going to mimic a plantar fasciitis. So this is going to be one of those conditions that we're going to need to pay special attention to, and something we may need to rule out. A couple of the common differences that I see, typically a neuritis is not painful upon first rising. And that's a very hallmark sign of plantar fasciitis, that pain when you first get up in the morning or when you first rise after prolonged sitting. A neuritis doesn't often do that. A neuritis will typically get painful at the end of the day, just like a plantar fasciitis, but it may not reproduce that pain upon first rising, especially in the morning. We're going to do some special tests to rule that out. We could do a little Tenel. We could tap over that tarsal tunnel. If that reproduces heel pain, that's going to be positive for a Baxter's neuritis. We can also do some neurodynamic tension testing, for example, a slump test. That may reproduce heel pain. Again, that might be positive for a neuritis, and distinguish that from a plantar fasciitis. And we also want to be aware of the anatomical continuity of the Achilles tendon and the plantar aponeurosis. Actually, up until about adolescence, we actually have direct fibrous attachments between the two. And then as we typically hit the ages of about 12, 13, 14, we start losing those direct fibrous